What attracted me about Venice, and in particularly the Jewish ghetto, was the tremendous contrast between the beautiful Gothic and Byzantine facades of Venice, the Venice that most tourists see, and the rather drab, dreary, gray, desolate Venetian ghetto. And it was just such a contrast. It was like a crow in a pail of milk or something. It was just very interesting, and I wanted to know more about this society that had been sequestered on this island and then later 2 other islands as the population grew. Well, I went to Venice 3 times. There are hundreds and hundreds of books written about Venice, so there is no shortage of research material. Many, many books written about the Venetian ghetto as well, for that matter. I have a friend who is an early modern historian who was very helpful to me. I've corresponded with a couple of Jewish studies people in Israel to fill in some of the background gaps. And the rest is just exercising my imagination, I guess. What do I like most about the book? Sometimes I think I like the kind of scrappy, acerbic conversations that Isaac on the island of Malta gets in. He's a slave and he's on an auction block, and they are trying to humiliate him. And one of the hecklers from the audience says, "Should I buy you as my slave?" And he says, if I can remember the line, "Buy me as your slave, you have already taken me as your counselor." So he's a bit of he has a mouth. He has a mouth, so I like that. The reason I set it in 1575 in particular was because Venice that year was decimated by a particularly bad plague. It was a terrible plague year. The population was about 100,000, 30,000 people or thereabouts died very quickly of the plague. Traditionally, or customarily, the plague starts in the summer and works its way through the early to late winter. And the barges were just heavy with dead bodies. Well, I have written a couple of mysteries, present-day mysteries about a Vancouver divorce lawyer, which is what I used to be in my former life. And I thought I would try my hand at writing a historical novel. I was spurred on by the idea when I went to Venice and started actually reading some history. And I have had many writing courses over the years, and my teachers have always said, write what you know. So that's why I wrote about Vancouver divorce lawyer. But I think the better advice to writers is write what you can imagine, and write what really turns your crank. What I enjoy about the writing process is that it is very solitary. I spent many, many years as a lawyer having to deal with clients, judges, court officials of various kinds, other lawyers, etc. Writing is solitary. I have complete control over my characters. Not that they always do what they're supposed to do, not that the dialogue always comes in a wonderful way, but it's just me and the blank page. And I enjoy that. And I also enjoy the promotion, because that forms a nice contrast and a nice counterbalance to this rather solitary endeavor of writing. What I least enjoy about writing is getting a plot together, a logical cause and effect plot. I tend to go off on tangents. I will have an idea. I'll read about syphilis and noses falling off from syphilis, and I will come up with a character who is wearing a silver nose, like the famous Danish astronomer. Maybe he fits in the book and maybe he doesn't, but it's such a great idea that I write pages and pages about a guy with a silver nose. And then some of these pages probably get hacked in the last cut. I enjoy the public speaking process, and I've done a lot of public speaking now, and I love it because as a lawyer I did a lot of courtroom work, and I would go into a courtroom, and I would assume that at least half of the people in the courtroom hated me. But now, when I speak about my book, my assumption is that everybody in the room loves me. So I have spoken everywhere from my old high school in Buffalo, New York, to Hadassah groups, at the Jewish Public Library in Montreal, chapters, Indigo, lots of book clubs. I've also done a lot of Skype appearances, and I do that for book clubs. Last year I was in Mexico for 4 months, and I did 3 or 4 Skype book clubs, and they work remarkably well. I learn a lot when I do speaking engagements, because I don't only answer questions from the audience, I also ask them questions. So I'm grappling at the moment with coming up with a good title to my sequel to The Midwife of Venice. So I will throw various titles out into the audience and say, raise your hand for choice 1 or for choice 2 or whatever. At book clubs I often talk to, do you like happy endings? Don't you like happy endings? Did you like this character? Did you think this was probable? Did you think it was improbable? I enjoy getting feedback from writers. And I also like to know how they heard about the book, because book promotion is a lot of responsibility, and writers, authors, are supposed to do a lot of it. It's not the publisher just taking charge anymore. The only negative I have about speaking engagements is it does cut into your writing time. In June I was in New York for a week and a half, and it was great, and I had a wonderful time, and I was at Book Expo, and I did a couple of speeches and did some signings in bookstores. But it means that for 6 or 7 days I really wasn't writing. I find it very hard to write when I'm on the road. The book I am working on now, which will be out in the spring of 2013, is set in Constantinople, Istanbul. And Hannah is midwife to the harem, to the Sultan's harem. And Isaac has a silk shop, and Isaac is manufacturing tents for the ladies of the harem to have their picnics in. And Hannah is called to the palace one night to verify the virginity of a young slave girl who is going to be presented to the Sultan as a concubine. I have always had a love affair with Istanbul. I was there, believe it or not, in 1966 for a couple of days in the heat of August, and was transfixed by how dark and sinister and spooky it seemed. It's remarkably more modern now than it was then. I have been there 4 times now, and the last time I was there, we rented an apartment in an area called Fenerbalat, and also in an area called in Pera, just off Istiklal, which is a business area, and also many, many books written about Istanbul and about the Topkapi Palace, and the Jewish community in Constantinople as well. It has been a source of great joy to me that the foreign rights have sold so well. My wonderful agent, Beverly Slopin in Toronto, has sold my book to 14 countries. So I now on my kitchen shelf have a lineup of books from Turkey, soon France, Norway, Hungary, Israel, Germany, Spain, Brazil, Bulgaria. The shelf isn't quite complete because a lot are still in progress, but it's sold very well. It's sold very well abroad. The English version, of course, is the UK has bought it. It's being published by Ebury in the UK, and I think it's doing very well. And from the UK, it will go to parts of Africa and India and Australia, New Zealand, and the Commonwealth. It's selling very well in the States. Simon & Schuster published it, and it came out in February of this year, and it seems to be doing very well in the States, which I'm very gratified, because that is the big market. Movie rights. Everybody asks me this delicious question. No, there's nothing in the offing. I did have a lunch invitation. A local production company took me out for lunch, and they seemed to be very interested in buying an option. And I said, great, contact my agent, this is her name, and we never heard from the company again. So it's still available. There is an old Yiddish word called sitzfleisch, which means the ability to sit on your behind for extended periods of time. That is my #1 tip for writers. Patience, perseverance, endurance, all of those things. Don't wait for inspiration. Just turn on the hard drive and tap away. And if you get stuck, pick up the nearest book next to you or the nearest box of cereal or whatever and just type whatever is on it, just to loosen up your fingers and get your mind active and working. And do it every day, and do it at the same time every day, and form a habit of writing.
Is there anything you would change in the first book?
Yes, there is. I have a wonderful character, Jessica, who is a courtesan, who is very beautiful and very successful at her occupation, and I killed her. Not realizing that I would be very soon very hard at work on a sequel. And I loved this character, and I killed her. And I would do anything to bring her back. But if Conan Doyle brought back Moriarty, maybe I could bring back Jessica. Except she died in Hannah's arms. She bled to death in Hannah's arms. So I don't know that I can. But yes, I would change that.
Tell me why you killed Jessica.
Because somebody had to die. I had to kill somebody, and it just happened that morning. It just happened to be Jessica. That was her chapter. No, I'm just kidding you. Why did somebody had to die? I needed a dramatic climax. I needed Hannah something to give her something to feel sorrowful about, and I didn't think Jessica was going to come to a good end, left to her own devices. She wasn't, you know, she made a lot of money, but she spent a lot of money. I could see her developing bad habits and falling in love with undesirable men. And I just thought, better to kill her and get it over with. When Ken and I were in Italy 2 years ago, we were in Vicenza, and there was a 500-year anniversary of the architect Palladio. Beautiful, gorgeous villas and so on. I think part of book 3 is going to be set in a Palladio villa, and I think I'm going to have to go and stay in one just to get the flavor. Just to get the not buy one, by the way. Not buy one. Not like you. I'm just going to rent. I'm just going to rent my dreams for 72 hours. I had a great deal of fun and pleasure in researching and writing The Midwife of Venice, and my wish for readers is that they will have as much pleasure from reading it.